Welcome to the Men's Collective podcast. In this space, we keep the conversations real, inspiring, and challenging you to become the man you are destined to be. Your family needs you to be better. Your friends need you to be better. We need you to be better. We are your hosts, the Average Joes. Gentlemen, welcome back to the Men's Collective podcast. This is a place where we cut through all the BS, tackle the real questions men face on their journey to becoming better men. We are the Average Joes. Wayne Taylor's my name, and I'm joined by two of my good mates once again, ready to tackle a big topic today. Jamie, Mikey, welcome lads.
How are you
doing, lads?
Just the three of us today.
The only ones that stuck with a woman, right?
Is it the topic that threw the fellas?
The only ones that were hadn't had enough balls to come on.
Yeah, that's too scared.
Yeah, the other guys weren't allowed out, so...
Well, look, this is the final installment of our three-part series that we called Is She the One? In part one, we looked at the situation from the perspective of single men, asking himself, is she the one? We looked at red flags, deal breakers, we covered expectations leading into a relationship, and so forth. In part two, we shifted gears to hear from the single again men that have been married, divorced, and navigating the ever-changing, app-filled dating world once again. But also, what a single again man should do differently. What should he focus on and change about himself before hitting the dating scene once again? Now, in part three, we're treading on dangerous but honest grounds by asking the same question, is she the one? But from the perspective of a married, or let's call it a long-term relationship man. These are the guys who've not only asked themselves, is she the one, but have committed to their answer through thick and thin, the better or for worse, the highs and lows, and everything in between. But here's the twist. Marriage doesn't mean the question goes away. Why? Well, simply because it doesn't. I want to cover questions like, how do married men know if she is still the one as life changes and challenges arise? What does it take to keep the spark alive when the honeymoon phase is a distant memory? When the kids grow up, move out, and once again becomes just you and her, what happens? How to navigate seasons of doubt, conflict, or even marriage boredom. Dealing with comparisons to other wives, because hey, we do. It's the truth. Most importantly, what does it mean to choose your partner every day, even when it's hard? This conversation isn't just for the married guys. There's wisdom here for the single men and for those starting over too, but also for the women. We do have a lot of female listeners, and the more of you that can understand your man, the more it may just benefit you both. I've said this many times in the past, knowing if she is the one isn't just about feeling. In fact, I'd put feelings right towards the end. It's about action, growth, and most importantly, it's about the commitment. So, whether you're married, dating, or still searching, grab a beer, grab a whiskey, settle in, and join us as we unpack the realities of love, marriage, and choosing your partner every day. Is she the one? Part 3, a married man's perspective. Gents, let's do this. Are you ready? Dangerous ground today.
I might just have a drink first.
Have a drink first. Get ready.
Steady the nerves.
Well, look, I am going to start with a doozy of a question. Look, it's one thing for single and single again men to ask the question, is she the one? But is it okay for married men to ask themselves, is she still the one? We'll start with a yes or no. I'll come back to your why. Is it okay, Jamie? Is it okay for a married man to even question, is she the one?
Yes.
It's okay.
Yep.
Mikey?
Yes, if the answer is yes.
Okay. So let's go back to the whys, and I'm going to come back to you first then, Mikey. So why, if you get the answer yes, then you've asked yourself that question first. Tell us why a married man would even ask himself that question.
I think you do naturally, don't you? It's just one of those things that you always compare everything. You know, the car you drive, the clothes you wear, the jobs. We're in a world where everything is compared. And we're in a world where the grass is always greener, or we're told it's always greener. But, you know, I look at marriage or long-term relationships as if you're in, you're in. So it's absolutely fine to realign yourself and go, hey, is she the one? The answer needs to be yes, or how do I get it back to a yes?
Jamie, you said yes. Why is it okay for a married man to ask himself, is she the one?
Because if you're asking yourself, there's a reason for it, and you have to look into that and you have to ask yourself, why am I asking myself this question? Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I have a little bit of a different sort of perspective on it, is that I think that if everything is good, guys don't ask themselves that question. And in turn, sometimes that's actually what is the stuff that makes the relationship not as good as what it used to be, because we buy into the whole fairy tale of the love story and they're going to love me forever no matter what, and all the rest of it. So, we might not do the things that we used to do when we first started. You know what I mean? We might become lazier. We might, let our health go. We might, start having bad habits and that sort of stuff. And then in turn, the relationship turns bad. So I think that it's totally okay for you to ask yourself that question if the relationship isn't where you want it to be. Because if you don't, because that is unfortunately where some guys come into that situation where they wake up or they go away on a boys' weekend or something, and then they come home to an empty house, or their stuff is put out the front because, they're just not aware of what's actually going on. So, and it's vice versa as well too, because it's not that the guys always change. Like, and I think the majority, I don't know whether I should say the majority.
Say it, they're not listening.
The majority of the guys that are going to listen to this are probably the guys who are actually done the right thing and stayed the same, and their partners changed as well. So if you're not the same when you first were together, and if it's not the same when you first were together, you have every right to ask yourself, is she the one, or is she still the one that I chose back then? Because if they're a totally different person, then they're not the one, are they? And you have to choose whether you're going to take this new one or not.
Here's a question though: if they're not the same person you married and they've turned into something you don't like, how much of that was your doing?
Well, it's an individual basis, and that is the thing, isn't it? You only can control yourself. You know what I mean? We only can influence, you can control yourself and your actions and your thoughts and what you do and that sort of stuff. And that's only going to influence that person. So it is up to them as well that if they're going to actually go back to the way they were, or whether you're going to find a compromise and meet in the middle to keep moving forward. Because otherwise, it's either going to go compromise or it's just going to keep moving apart, And then that's when people just give up, don't they? And that's where some people do just stick around for the kids, or, where they're just like, I do not want to be with this person anymore. I'm counting down the days. Do you know what I mean?
So for a married man to even ask the question, if a married man's going through something, regardless, a hard time, a good time, doesn't matter what it is, for a married man to even contemplate the question, is this woman still the one? Where does that where does that come from? Because if my thought is this, if a married man is asking that, he's obviously going through a bad time, because a man going through a good time wouldn't ask himself that. Or my thought is that he wouldn't. So is it an indicator that if you are asking yourself, God, you know what, I'm actually second guessing this, is this the right one for me? Is that an indicator? Or is it, I'm going to say yes, it's an indicator. Is it an indicator? Or is it the first indicator of, hey, what you're going through right now needs some attention, it needs some adjustment, it needs some looking into? Surely it's an indicator. Because why would a married man question that?
Oh, I agree with you. It's like the warning light on a car, isn't it? That's, if you're asking yourself those questions, that's a warning light. Something is wrong.
Yeah. Do you think there is a married man out there that has never thought that question to himself?
Maybe Chris so far, but
Chris,
that's why he wasn't invited, yeah, because he's
that's why I didn't invite him on today. Hey, look, I'll be totally honest, and I know, Mikey, you and I've had this conversation many times, and I've said this many times, so without the fear of sounding repetitive, but I have been married coming up to 25 years, and I love my wife dearly, but I'm going to be straight out honest. There has been times where not that the thought of divorce has ever come into play, but there has definitely been the thought where you go, you know what, we're 25 years older than what we were when we made this commitment. Are we the same people? If we're not the same people, have we grown and changed together on the same path, on the same journey? Because I think a lot of marriage breakdowns, when you look at the statistic of marriage breakdowns now, this thing is 54%. And that's right across the board. Doesn't matter what your culture is, what your religion is, what your parental upbringing is, doesn't matter. It's 54%. That's more than 1 in 2. That's, out of every 100 marriages, 54 break down. And I wonder if that's part of what's contributing to the other statistic of today's society, which is less people are getting married. And I think one of the things is, I don't know if the right word is healthy. I don't know if it's healthy for married people to ask the question, but I've definitely had the thought of, and I know we touched on this in when we did our episode of Halftime. You hit 40, 45 years old and you start to question a lot of things. Am I in the right career? Have I done the right things here? Am I doing this? One of those questions is, did I marry the right person? And I've had that, just being straight out honest, I have that thought has gone through my head. And it's not necessarily because things have been bad, but you want to back yourself in the decisions that you have made. And so you ask yourself that question, is this person the right one? I think a lot of the dangers in that is that everybody wants to change, and especially in what we are about here in Average Joes, is that we push for men to change for the better. We always talk about becoming better men. And I actually remember having this conversation with Lisa a couple of months ago when I was reading that book, Jamie, No More Mr. Nice Guy, right? Reading the book and having it bring about a lot of effect and a lot of questioning in my own head by going, wow, like, yes, I've definitely identified that I'm very much a yes man in a lot of areas. I do play the game too nice in a lot of areas. And I remember when I was telling Lisa, I said, I'm reading this book. It's really, really good. It's challenging, like a lot of my upbringing. It's challenging a lot of thoughts, a lot of habits that I've created. And it's stuff that I'm going, you know what, these are areas I need to change. When I told her that, her initial fear was, what, so does this mean you're going to change to the point where you don't see what you have as being good? And I think that could ring alarm bells for a lot of wives, because it's, okay, so what, are you changing to be someone totally different, that now what we have is not good enough? And when I see the marriage breakdown rate that we are experiencing, I think a lot of it comes down with, I'll give you an example. When Lisa and I got engaged, and I may have told this story before, so forgive me if I have, but I remember my sister, I'm only one of 2 kids. My sister's older than myself. My sister got married in the August. 1 month later, I proposed. I was 20 years old. I proposed on my 20th birthday. Lisa was 19. So we're extremely young, right? And extremely different to the people we are now, right? But I'll come back to that. So I proposed 1 month after my sister got married. So then we went to a family of 4, down to a family of 3, and then 1 month later, here's now the announcement that family of 4 has now gone 3 to 2, because my parents are now going to be faced with the situation of, wow, we're going to be alone. So I remember it was about 3 weeks after I proposed, I'd come back to the house, and there'd been my sister had come back home for a bit of a talk with my parents, and my parents announced that now that my sister had gotten married, I've announced that I'm now wanting to be married. My parents dusted their hands and went, all right, well, we've done our job. And I thought, what the hell is your job? I said, well, we've raised 2 good kids, and we've now looked at each other and gone, who the hell are you? Because 25 years of being married, focus became so much on the kids that they had realised that was the bonding glue that held the marriage together, was let's just focus on being good parents. Let's forget about ourselves individually, but forget about who we are as a couple. And so the fear hit them like a ton of bricks. The fear hit them of, wow, we are going to be alone again like we were 25 years ago pre-kid. We're going to be those people again. But I think the dangers that people see, and this is leading into the times of kids moving out, but also when kids do move out, is you have this married couple that now look at each other and go, I don't even know who you are anymore. Because the journey of change on growth whether it be positive or negative, but the growth happens, the change happens, but it's happened on two different roads. And I think one of the biggest contributing factors, and it's sad because kids are such an amazing contribution to marriage, but I believe the family unit is built before the kids even come along. The kids are an addition to what is built through commitment and through love and through so many other things. The kids are an addition to that, but I think one of the dangers is you see men and women get to the point where the kids move out and they go, well, hang on, who the hell are you? And I think that raises the question in a lot of men, because especially men, we go out there and we work so hard, we do, and women do now too, I get that. But I'm saying the focus of men so much is provide, go out there, work, the wife traditionally raising the kids. But you see men and women grow so far apart. And when the thought or the fear steps in of, wow, my kids are old enough to be moving out soon, men start to question, is this woman still the one? And it's dangerous.
So, or is it also another, and that might not be the case with your parents, right? But is it also, though, that the man has been unhappy for a long period of time, but hasn't actually bothered trying to fix it because of the arguments or the worries on how that's going to affect the kids? And then once it's done, it's actually too far gone. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So, like, I guess with your parents, who do you think is happier, your dad or your mum now?
I would say my dad is happier.
Yep.
Aren't we just the happier of the two sexes, though? Broadly speaking,
in general?
In generally speaking.
Which I guess raises another question. When you look at a marriage, what does make either happier? But let's focus on the man. What makes a man happy in marriage? Because if a man was truly happy, would he ever ask this question? What do you think makes a man happy in a marriage?
I think if you're getting attention from your wife, and that's obviously intimate, physical, but if they feel like they're into you, and you're coming home to a semi-stress-free home, like we're out in the workplace all day and we come home, and you kind of want that to be your solitude, your safe space. If that's not, calm and tidy and in a certain way, which for most people these days isn't, because the wife's out there doing the same as the husband. So I think that's probably a big one.
Yeah, I think it's obviously that affection, and sex is a big thing for guys, and that is normally the number one hang up on if someone's going to be unhappy, like a man's going to be unhappy in their relationship, it's normally how much intimacy.
Things usually look up just afterwards, don't they?
Correct. You're like, oh yeah, here we go.
Why is Dad skipping down the hallway?
Yeah, but the other two really important ones is appreciation, and respect, So, which is that book you put me onto, which it just makes so much sense, But I do think that there is a lot of that loss because, as you said, a lot of women are out in that workplace now. They move into that masculine role, and that sort of question of, what do we need you for, comes up in their mind as well too. Am I with the right guy? He's not actually providing for me, or I can look after myself. So, what is the case?
So if a man was to go through not to use, I guess, the word happiness, but that in itself, we can come back to that about what makes a man happy. But for a man to be content, or for a man to be committed, or for a man to be locked into a marriage, and he asks himself, is this woman the one? For him to get to, yes, this woman is definitely the one. What do you think the top three things would be for him to create a checklist? Because if we can go through a checklist and you can't tick one of those boxes, is that enough for a man to question, is she still the one? For me, I think, when you're saying Love and Respect, the reason that book, Love and Respect, made such a big impact on my own life is because one of the questions in it is, if you were to ask a man, Would you rather your wife come home to you and say, honey, I really love you, or honey, I really respect you? You'll hear 99% of men go, I would much rather my wife say, honey, I really respect you. You flip that script and you ask the wife, if your husband comes home and says to you, honey, I really love you, or honey, I really respect you, what do you think the woman would say? Again, the vast majority of women would say they would much rather hear, honey, I love you, showing the difference between the much needed respect within a man and the much craved and desired love that the woman desires, right? So I think when it comes down to respect, I think for me, if I was to create a checklist, respect would be a massive one. I would need to feel respected. If that box was to get ticked, I would have no question, no doubt in my mind that this woman's the one. I think this is where you then start tapping into what, we've come to know in the past of like things like love languages. I think if your wife speaks your love language as fluent as she can, or as best she can, or, as fluent as she can, I think that's a big tick regardless. For me, my love language being words of affirmation. So to be able to hear that I do a good job, that my wife sees me contributing, making an effort. Honey, you did great here. That was really good. Wow, I love what you said. Hearing those things as a man does nothing but just build me up. And the building up makes me feel like, if it was a muscle group that you're working in a gym, a built up muscle gets stronger and pushes further. For me, hearing that from Lisa pushes me and makes me want to go further. I think the third box, I think most men, if not every man, would tick this, would definitely be the physical like sex, being intimate, right? So if a man can create his own three and one of those isn't ticked, does that justify him asking the question as a married man, you know what, I'm now wondering if this woman is still the one? One box? Two box? How many boxes don't need to be ticked for a married man to ask that question? Half a box?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a box on the?
Well, look, honestly though, I think that if you're not being intimate, that's the number one problem for most guys, because it does show that the attraction is there. That does show the appreciation. It does show that sort of stuff, and it's we're talking to the guys here. We all know that's not the only thing that you care about. Do you know what I mean? Like, if anything, you care about providing and looking after that family and showing that love to the family. That's what you love. But you need that.
Right now, I'm holding a loaded gun. Once it's empty, we can
Yeah,
do all the other stuff.
Because I know
It feels like that though.
Yeah.
We laugh, but it feels like that.
Yeah,
You feel
I know.
dangerous when your gun's loaded.
Yeah, I know a lot of guys that would put up without being respected. Do you know what I mean? And there's a lot of guys out there that would put up without being like appreciated, or their partner not speaking their love language. So we can accept that that's not, that's just not the way they are, or they find that hard, and we can work through that sort of stuff. But when I hear about guys not having sex for 6 months or a year, or there's even worse cases out there, that just sort of says to me, wow, that's like it is part of our makeup, and how are you going to connect and have that feeling of connection without that? Like, and let's be honest, like in the honeymoon stage, imagine if you in the honeymoon stage you weren't intimate in any way the whole time.
It'd be a pretty short honeymoon, wouldn't it?
It would be. You probably wouldn't have chosen her in the first place. So, and I really do feel that's why I started off when I was like, yeah, we have to look at ourselves and go, have you let yourself go? Are you not the man you were when you first? Because that can be a contributing factor. But the thing that pisses me off is when they're like, oh, it's just not like that anymore, or we don't need to have sex anymore, or my girlfriends say that they have sex less times than what we do, and you're like, yeah, but that
Your girlfriend's a bitch.
yeah, like
Send her over here.
Yeah.
it's
I'll
not
take her portion.
yeah,
Mikey.
it's not about what they say. It's about what the relationship needs.
So it sounds like you prioritize, I would say, intimacy as the top
Oh,
tier.
100%. 100%.
So what if she talks to you and treats you like crap though, but puts you out quite often?
At the same time.
No, well,
Well, that's
Could
but,
happen like
but that but that is
if
part,
that's your fantasy, Mike, it's
but
if that's your thing.
but I wouldn't put up with that either. Do you know what I mean? But I did in my first marriage, you know, and that's sort of like a choice you have to make for yourself. How are you going to allow other people to treat you? Because you know you're in control of what you take in and your reactions, but you're also in control of what situations you're allowed to you're going to put yourself in, what you're going to take. You know,
So a man that is putting up with it, let's use the phrase putting up with it. You look at a man, cops crap from his missus all the time. She talks down to him. There's no intimacy, and we call it putting up with it. What we know what he's putting up with, but why is he sticking around?
I think because he believes in the fairy tale.
That one day it'll change back.
No, we're in love, and she is the one for me, and it's going to last forever. And you know, we're just
So
going
you've just
through a hard
removed
time.
though. You've removed intimacy.
I think you get hamstrung though, don't you? In that, I've met guys that are, you know, they're basically lapdogs to their wife.
Yep.
They're like an accessory, and I think some of them enjoy it. Like genuinely, they look happy in that space. But I think some guys are just you're stuck within a confine, this kind of glass box that you think is life, and you just don't see beyond it. Like, oh, this is married life. This is what I do. You know, her friend treats her husband the same way. It's just that's what I see, and they put up with it. But I don't know. With all of what we're talking about, is if your wife, when you first got together, if there was a good sex life and she was giving you the words of affirmation, talking your love language, and now fast forward 10 years and she isn't, is that your fault? Have you done that to her?
Do you think men look to themselves as if it is their fault?
I initially we don't. I think if you snuggle up to the missus and you ask her for a bit and she says no, your initial thing is hurt. You're like, oh, fuck you. That's the initial bit. It's like, well, hang on, why won't you? But years ago, a good friend of mine, he said to me, he's like, it's your job. If she doesn't want to have sex with you, it's your fault. You should be the guy that she wants to have sex with.
You agree with that?
There's got to be an element of truth in that.
I
hey?
100% agree with that.
I think there is circumstances, I think, where there can be stuff that isn't beyond your control. But as a whole, I think, yeah, we should be.
Yeah. I think one of the dangers in that is because I 100% agree, and I remember having a chat with a mate of mine a year or so ago saying the answer straight off the bat is to be the type of man your wife wants to have sex with. I think that's key, right? I think one of the dangers that if there's still no intimacy, though, if there still isn't sex, I don't think that needs to be an indicator to the man that he's not worth or worthy of having sex with. I think that then steps into an indication of, okay, this doesn't take away my worthiness of who I am, because I think a lot of men go, if my wife doesn't want intimacy with me, I must be the type of guy that's not worthy of it. I'm not saying shop around. I'm not saying close the relationship. I'm definitely not saying that. But what I am saying is I think that train of thought needs to be nipped in the bud straight away, because I think that's where a lot of men then fall into that downward spiral of I mustn't be worthy. It's like, no, you aren't. I think that then goes, well, what do you do now? Leading on to my question, what does a man like that do now? He's in a relationship, he's married, let's put a figure on it, it's 20 years. Sex has died off to what used to be once, twice, 3 times a week, died off to once a month, and now they're doing it twice a year. what does a man like that do? Does he stick around? No, actually, that's not the right question. What's the question that goes through that man's head in regards to, am I worthy of this? Am I in the right place? Is this woman still the one? What should his train of thought be?
How do I get it back? It's, the whole notion of giving up on a relationship and moving on. There's a hell of a lot logistically involved in that. Like you look at, if you've got kids. I heard it on a podcast years ago, and this marriage advice was, if you're thinking about getting divorced, write a list of all the problems you have now, and then write a list of all the problems you're going to have after you've broken up, or even that are caused from you going your own way. And more often than not, you're going to find that list is worse once you've done it. So it's, first of all, I think it's understanding that the grass isn't always greener, and actually buckling down and going, there has to be a way of fixing it. Let's just get on and do it.
I think a great way to look at it is think about what you would do if you're single anyway. And I'm not saying go out and try to pick up girls, but how many guys do you know who get divorced? You know what I mean? Well, they sort of go two ways, don't they? They either just give up altogether and just write women off and go, that's it. You know what I mean?
Buy membership at the kebab shop and that's it.
Yeah. Or they go, all right, this is my second chance, so I'm going to make this a go of this. Yeah. And what do those guys do though? First thing they do is go get in the gym.
Tidy themselves up.
Don't they? You know what I mean? Go get their teeth done or whatever. Like they get better haircuts. They buy a better wardrobe. They start to look better. They start to act better. They start to do things better. They might even start working harder to make more money to attract a better caliber. You know what I mean? But if you actually became that man in the relationship, that's going to give you the best sense of saving it anyway.
Yep.
Because you think about, right, why do women give so much sex when people start first getting together? Why do you think it is?
Trying to lock it in.
Well, they're competing with the other women, aren't they? So they're like, I need to show what I can give to actually lock this guy in. Do you know what I mean?
I know what you're saying.
Are you saying to date her sister?
What?
Sorry, what?
No, yeah. Wouldn't be the first one. No.
That's right.
I do understand what you're saying, Jamie, and I know this is going to go back to, because you guys know my story, but Lisa and I have only been with each other, right? So it's, for me or for her, it was never a, let's change once we're married, or let's do anything different once we're married, or things like that. So I understand that may be, majority or a lot of people's relationships into it. I think the reason ours was different though is we were locking into what we were deciding to commit to become, not what we were experiencing prior and gone, this is great, let's lock this in. For us, and this is where I believe love has warped so much in culture, we decided that we were going to not only grow together, that's a gimme, that's an easy one, but we were going to discover a lot of things together. So we weren't necessarily locking in anything that was great. Like there was a lot of things that were great, but it was not okay, this is going to work, let's lock this in. It was, are you prepared to make this work? Yep. Okay. Are you prepared to make this work? Yep. Okay. And I remember the guy that actually did our wedding said to never let the word divorce become a part of your vocabulary, right? Which I understand. Again, I understand you've been through a divorce, mate. And I think for us, because we were deciding at the start that, hey, we're going to learn so much more about each other, which I know marriages do the same. But I think one of the things when you do get married, compared to having a long-term relationship, although nowadays marriage paper, let's call it a marriage paper because you hear it get referred to so often now as, it's just a bit of paper, right? Which is referring back to, well, if I love this woman or deciding to be with her, then that's the decision. I'm going to make it happen. paper means nothing, right? For me, I disagree. I think the paper is an important part of it. But anyway, one of the dangers, I look at it and I go, for me to separate from what I have now is a lot more involved, right? Compared to if we were just in a long-term relationship, because the breakup could just be like, yeah, we've decided. And I saw it with one of my best mates, together for 15 years. And literally on the weekend it was over, and it was over. There was nothing else needed to be done because there was no marriage, right? Marriage is treated a little bit different. But I wonder if a lot of men stick around in marriages because of the headache divorce looks like. Causing now, I wonder why you see a lot of unhappy men in marriages because they're just content to stay because of the hassle it may bring.
If you look at the stats, women file for divorce more than men. So I think that it's, do you know what I mean? I think you're exactly spot on the money where if you're going to marry someone, it should be values-based. It should be we're in this together. It should be we're gonna change and work and work towards making each other happy. But I don't think I think for maybe I'm a bit jaded because I am divorced, but you know what I mean. But I went in to the marriage just like that. Do you know what I mean? I actually was in 100% and then started to feel controlled and I walked away. And then she asked to come back and I said, cool, as long as it stays the same way. Yeah. And it stayed the same way right until about 2 years, 3 years after we got married. And then you're a married man. You can't do that anymore. You can't be like that anymore. You can't. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So that's the point I'm trying to make. I wonder if the locking in of the paperwork of what we know as marriage nowadays, can it become something that not so much going to say wives can use against men, but do you think it becomes something of, well, but you're married. Like you can't leave. We know you can, but marriage seems to be harder bond to break than a dating relationship or a engaged relationship. It's harder to break a marriage.
Well, I don't know because property is split 50% now as soon as you live together for 6 months. Yeah. You know, if you have kids together, it's a similar sort of stuff. Like, you know, and there's
do you think it's psychological then? Do you think because you're married?
I actually think it's the guys who work hard. I think I might get some hate for this. I think it's the women thinking that the grass is greener. And unfortunately, I think after they leave, most of the time, they find out that it's not. So
I think we probably look at the grass is greener as well. I think we probably look a little bit deeper and realise once you get over that initial, you know, women walk around like it's a Facebook post, like you do yourself up, you present your best as everyone does. If you were to go and sit in a coffee shop and see a good-looking woman and go, yep, she's nice, I bet her husband's got a great life, you know, loads of sex, respects him, all the rest. If you actually applied the same life to her, she'd still fart, she'd still get cranky, she'd still act like her mother sometimes.
Your missus
all
fart.
this shit. Yeah. Oh mate. Oh dude. I'm getting her emissions tested next week.
Oh, who's going on a dry spell now?
Yeah, that's right.
Talking about comparisons, mate, let's look at that for a moment, right? Because let's just be straight out honest. You can be totally in love with your wife, totally content with your wife, totally happy. Show me one man that has never at one stage in his happy marriage compared his wife. I have. It's not brought doubt or anything like that, but you do to some point, especially when you go back to those three things I said, when you do as a man create that checklist in your head of, you know what, these things, I'm a simple being, I don't ask for much, but if I can get intimacy, respect, and just don't talk to me like I'm a piece of crap, it's not much to ask. When you see another marriage and you have just come out of an argument with your missus and your head, your temperature's through the roof and you're like, your temper's gone crazy. You're like, oh, stuff this, I can't believe she said that stupid bitch and blah, 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 blah. And then you see another man's wife talk well of him and show him that respect. is there not a part of you that goes, God, I wish I had that?
It's not
Yeah,
so
but
hard,
it's-
is it? Yeah.
But what's wrong with that?
No, but that's what I'm saying. So is it, I'm not trying to put in our heads that it's healthy to compare. It's definitely not what I'm trying to say here. What I'm saying is that every man does. And I think what's healthy is to accept the fact that every man does, to go, you're not alone in this. Because one of the dangers, I believe, is that when you do start to compare and you entertain the thought further and further and further, that's when you start looking. And I believe that's where the dangers step in.
It's the action. Do you know what I mean? And that's so if you're taking like you can think about stuff like, Victoria's Secret model wouldn't be around if men didn't think about didn't admire a beautiful woman. You know what I mean? But let's be honest, is that if we were capable of having a woman like that, you would be it's a horrible thing to say, but we settle for the best partner that we can find. Do you know what I mean? So where, if you had Angelina, if
Everyone's
That's a
just
big-
distanced
That's a
themselves.
big, I'm waiting for lightning to come down and just strike.
well, let's call a spade, right? I love Anna 100%. Yeah. But if I was talking to Jessica Alba and I was talking to Anna and both of them wanted to marry me,
Don't dare say it, Jamie.
I'd
say
have to
it.
go with Anna.
He said it. Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I meant.
But,
Because you
but
know
let's,
the maintenance bill on Jessica Alba, and you're like, no.
that would put me to work. But in saying that as well, if her celebrity crush was there and wanted to marry her and I was there, I would have no doubt that she would have chosen him. Well, let's be real. you know.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I don't know.
And
'Cause we're looking
this
at looks
is
now,
the thing that pisses me off is that we buy into the fairy tale, like the Disney play of you guys are a perfect match, and the cosmos came together, and I don't seek, I attract, and it's all that bullshit.
The one with the universe. and-
Yeah, all that bullshit. But really, there's
Yeah,
good
fuck
people
Disney.
out there.
Fuck
There's
Disney, man.
yeah, there's good people out there,
Yep.
that get together and they go, do you know what? I want to spend the rest of my life with you. That's what it is. And I don't think that, having looking at something going, I wish I was treated like that. That's not a bad thing. You could actually go, who is the man that I have to be treated like that?
I think that's a good question to ask.
Yeah, that's the way we should be looking at it. What do I need to do to get the intimacy? What do I need to do to get that sort of stuff? That is step one, 100%. Do you know what I mean? And honestly, I don't wish divorce on guys because it is a heartbreaking, horrible thing to do. And I've seen it destroy some guys. For me, I and I've said it before, it was great for me, but and I wish I put the effort in for myself at the start, but I don't think it would have saved the relationship because it takes two people both wanting to change to save the relationship, and you can go and become, so that's what I was saying before, go and be that person who you would be if you were single, go look after yourself, go lift your standards, go become a better version of yourself that you can. And I do think that competition anxiety will come back in your partner, and you probably will be getting more intimacy, But if they're not prepared to make those changes as well, then that question's just going to be haunting you over and over and over again. And then, as you said, I don't know whether it's a checklist or whatever, but I think that, boundaries have to be set then to go, this is how I'm okay being treated, and this is how I'm not okay with this. And then if it's not set, you hold your boundaries, and then eventually, it's not going to work because it's either, you have the choice on how you want to be treated. And what that is the one thing that I love about Anna the most is that she genuinely wants us to be the best people that we possibly can be. Do you know what I mean? Like if we're improving together as if we're getting better as an individual, she wants me to be the best version I can be. You know, either with her or without her. That's in her heart. That's genuinely what she wants, and that's a rare thing, you know, to find. I think so. And and that's why I'm prepared to marry her second time around. You know, and that's
Marry her second time around.
no, for me, second time around. But I think that it is a dangerous thing for us, for men, to get put into that. It should be a fairy tale, and it should be because I do think that men, and I've said it before, are the ones that fall harder, and I do think that it's men that love more. Like, you know, and I might be wrong, but it's just my opinion. And that's why I think that, you know, women are normally the ones who file for divorce. And, you know, if you're sitting there and you're asking yourself that question, the best thing to do is just go be the best version of yourself you can be.
Discover multi-award-winning real estate with podcast sponsor One Life Property Group, based on the Sunshine Coast, Queensland, specialising in everything from high-end duplexes to multi-residential developments, ensuring the highest quality workmanship. Visit onelifepropertygroup.com.au today to achieve excellence in your next property development.
I agree with you there, mate. I agree that, because I know we've touched on this many times before, it does come down to us being the best us we can be. I want to tie it into what Mikey said before too, where you've seen men just become like little lapdogs because they're noticing change within, either they're not getting one of those boxes ticked or, you know, and things like that. So they've gone, okay, I'm going to look inward here. Am I the type of man my wife wants to sleep with? Because that could identify the reason as to why we're not. Am I the type of man that my wife wants to respect, right? And I do believe it's very, very important for men to look inward and go, right, if I'm not receiving it, maybe with the energy, maybe the whatever I'm putting out there is presenting something, displaying something that's not getting the receptivity that I believe I should desire. But definitely there is a problem when men go, okay, well then how far do I go before I'm no longer the man I need to be or the man I should be? Because that's where men begin to lose their identity, is that they recognize that the happiness in the marriage is lost, the spark in the marriage is lost. And I think it's healthy for a man to go, right, okay, what do I need to do? Question myself. Am I the type of person that my wife wants to sleep with? Am I the type of, they ask themselves those questions. But where does that man draw the line and go, right, I'm now actually no longer that man in myself anymore. I've taken this too far because I feel this woman can never be pleased, right? Where does he draw that line?
I think you need to trade Tesla in and go and buy a diesel.
Yeah. If you're driving a Tesla, first question answered, mate.
Now, go down and trade it for a diesel.
I think because here's the thing, right? It's one thing to desire to be happy in a marriage. I get that. But when you're just trying to desire to make your partner happy, there needs to be a point where men go, you know what? I've tried to the point where I'm no longer me. I need to stop, right?
Yeah, self-preservation.
Yeah. I think, though, one of the dangers it opens up once again, and I'll say some what you said, Jamie, because I don't know if I 100% with it, right? Obviously, because you guys know my stance on marriage and things like that. And I see men ask themselves just throughout their marriage, you know, is this woman still the one? And they get to the point where they go, you know what, this isn't going to work. I understand that both men and women get to that point. Is this going to work, right? I'm a big believer in when you get to that point, your question shouldn't be, is this going to work? But your question is, how do I make this work? Because I go back to, and I remember saying this to Lisa many times, because like I said, man, it's not that Lisa and I have ever been on the point of, you know, on the brink of a breakdown or anything like that. But there's definitely been times where arguments have got to the point where you go, bloody hell, did I think this through 20 years ago, 25? Like, did I actually? Because you do. It's a natural thing for men to question that, right? But I think what holds me intact is I made a promise when I stood opposite her at that altar. I made her a promise that for better or worse, not for better or better, not for better or a little bit below better, not for for better or for the not so good times. I made a commitment that it was for better or for worse.
For better or for mother-in-law.
For better or for mother. Once you're 100% your mother, I'm telling you now, sorry, honey. No. But reminding myself and reminding her that, hey, this was a for better or for worse argument. So am I just going through the for worse part? Again, I've not been down the path to the point where I've gone, I think we're at the worst. Because it's not been that, thank God it hasn't been. But I understand that some men, like you're saying, Jamie, you get to the point where you do question, you go, this isn't going to work. I've not been there, so I can't vouch for that. But I've definitely been to the point many times where I've gone, hang on, the commitment was for better or for worse. I'm experiencing right now the for worse part. So it's not a matter of this is going to work. It's a matter of how do I make this work? Which I know we've touched on before, in other podcasts with forgiveness and things like that, to forgive fast, forgive quick. Not only that, to believe that the motive was pure. Because we've had arguments where I go, you're off your head. You are so far off this planet. What you've done makes absolutely no sense. Do you even... And I know she's probably thought that about me too, but she'd be wrong. But she's probably thought that before. But it's natural. Relationships do that. There's arguments, there's disagreements. And I remember Jordan Peterson saying a few times that if you don't disagree and argue in your marriage, that's a sign of an unhealthy relationship. And there's a verse in Proverbs which I love, which talks about as iron sharpens iron, so does one man sharpen another, right? And the meaning of that is that you take two pieces of iron, the more you rub them together, the sharper they become because they're rubbing off at each other and they're affecting each other in such a positive way. So when I look at disagreements and arguments within a marriage, I don't ask myself, man, is this going to work? I look at it and go, hang on, the promise was, how do I make this work? So I need to look at this and go, right, if we're arguing, we're disagreeing, we're not seeing eye to eye, how do I make this a scenario of iron sharpening iron instead of, you know what, we're on two different paths. You know what, I should have thought this through long before. You know what, maybe I shouldn't have rushed into this. Not that we rushed into it, but I mean, like, maybe we're too young. Because I had many people tell us we're too young. Still get it. You know, oh, you got me married so young. Yeah, but I haven't pulled back on it. So I can understand what you're saying, Jim. I get it that there are men that get to the point where they go, this is not going to work. I've not been there, but I have been to, okay, how do I make this work? And it's been bloody hard. 100% it's been hard.
Yeah, well, on your analogy though, the iron sharpening iron has to work like that, right? Where you're rubbing up against each other, right? But if you have one,
yeah, it's true.
That's like this.
Yep.
Well, sorry, I was just banging my hands together like an axe on a thing for the people on Spotify.
Spotify has visual too.
Yeah, all right, sorry. But
just
I
driving.
actually do. I listen to it in the car and watch the. No, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't watch the,
No, you don't watch it when you're driving.
No.
I don't proof every podcast watching it as I drive either.
Yeah. Yeah, but if it's banging on the edge, that's not getting any sharper.
That's true.
It's damaging the edge. And
that's a good thought, mate.
And I do agree with you 100% where you make a promise and you should be working. It is for better and it is for worse. But it's so important that both. So if you've gone, and I disagree with what you said, you change to a point where you're not yourself anymore. That's not what you should be doing.
No, I agree with you. That's what I'm saying. That's the dangers. I've seen men
change for
go
them.
that and go, I'm too far now.
You've got to change to be the person you're supposed to be because they fell in love with the person that you were, not the person that they want you to be. They fell in love with the person who they saw as the leader of the family, not the person that's going to actually sit there and say, oh, yes, dear, no, dear, 3 bags full, dear. You know what I mean? It's the person who knew what he was doing and where he was going and what was happening. So
I'll say one thing like that though, not to cut you off, sorry, mate, because we've had this conversation before about how, and look, I could be wrong in saying this, but I'm definitely open for, involvement on your thoughts on this. Do you think, is there married men out there, I'm not specifically asking you guys, but definitely the married men out there listening, surely there are married men out there that feel as if their wife is always trying to change them though? Because I remember we've had this conversation before, Michael, where we fall in love with the women that they are, which is why we lock it in. But do women fall in love to the men they think we could become? So now when they do lock us in, it's like they take us on like we are a little project, and they try to improve us.
The statement is, we get with a woman hoping she won't change. They get with us hoping they can change us. That's.
But you tell me how many women have changed their partners and are happy about it.
Do you know what's funny? I look back at this. Hey,
that's a good thought.
When I first got with Pip, I was working in a pub. I was, knew everyone, jumping around, being silly, the joker. Knew a heap of people that. I look back and I go, I'm glad that I moved away from that crowd, but I can very much see that she steered me away from them with what we were doing every day, with the interactions. No, let's go and do this. It was pulling me out of that. So 100% she changed me. I don't think she realised how much I would change over the following 15 years. But 100% I don't know what she liked. She liked something, and then she set about changing a few things. It happened to be some of them for the better. Some stuff gets a lot of resistance, and you refuse to change. But,
Don't come across as that kind of guy.
That's right, yeah. I'm still leaving the toilet door open. That's it.
You can watch me piss.
Look me in the eye.
It's
I just ruined my chances of a second shot, haven't I?
maybe most of what you say need to cover the microphone a bit just get recorded.
Stop. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Oh, man.
so they shouldn't. And yes, if you're changing for the better, like that's. I don't think that's a bad thing. But if you're changing who you are, like I've lost friends where I'm like, I've said to them like, the way your wife treats you is not. It's not okay. Like you shouldn't. He was working. All day every day. And she was a stay-at-home mum. And he came home and he was getting ordered around cleaning the house, and I'm like, mate, I'm not saying that you shouldn't do any housework or anything else, but I'm like, the way you're getting spoken to right now, plus you just finished work all day, that's,
There's a line.
I don't think that's right.
It's funny because we're looking at this from three guys that have met women that we think are the ones, and if you change it, you want to work it. There's going to be a lot of guys out there that have fallen into the honeypot, as it were. They've been sucked in by a bitch. Do you know what I mean? Like you know the ones because you see them. You see some relationships, and you're like, man, from day dot, you've been a conniving whatever, and we've all had friends that have gone that way. So, what should they do? What about the guy who's kind of waking up and going, oh, actually, do you know what? From the very start, she's broken me down and tried to make me something I'm not. There'll be guys there. They're a lapdog. They get given a list of jobs. They're there as an accessory and there to pay the bills or to get bossed around. What should they do? Throw the Tesla in?
Yes, definitely throw the Tesla in.
Well, it's get in the gym and be the man that you can be, and then set boundaries. Like that is.
But if you're on that journey to become a better man, right?
Yeah.
And it's within a marriage where the man is already going, you know what, I'm not feeling it here, so I'm going to just become the better man. Do you think that in itself creates the danger of, well, I'm now going to start growing a hell of a lot faster, a hell of a lot better, start taking higher ground, start leveling up a lot better? Do you think that causes him to then look, I'm not going to say the phrase look down upon his wife, but if you're leveling up and you're going hard down, you're becoming better, do you think that creates a danger in itself to him look down and go, you know what, along this self-improvement journey, I've I feel like I've done it alone because I have done it alone. I now feel like I am a lot better, or I have a lot more to offer somebody else now because she hasn't grown with you.
Well, let me ask you this though: do you think he's going to think that if he's getting the affection that he desired,
Of course
if he's getting the respect that he wanted, and if he's getting that appreciation? Because I think men are like, even though I think right at the start, men do obviously looks is a big factor for us, right? But I think that over a period of time, like I think we're less, like we're okay if they lose their looks a lot more because we do have that love. And do you know what I mean? As you said, it is so much work and it's so much heartbreak to step away from that, you know, where you go, oh, I hope so I would be thinking that, oh, I hope I inspire my wife to get on this journey with me. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So now, if they didn't if nothing changed and they still were getting treated like shit and they weren't getting the affection that they wanted, and then they probably would go, I'm not going to put up with this shit anymore.
Yeah. But again, that's if you are genuinely putting in the hard yards and doing everything right and you get nothing back, sure.
Yep.
Get out of there. But quite often, like we all have times. I will have a coffee with Wayne and I'll have a bit of a bitching session and have a whinge. And if I'll go away and realise that, well, hang on, probably half of what's going on, I'm causing it. So if I'm not willing to change that myself, how can I do the same thing every day and expect a different result?
And I think that's the healthy part of it too, mate, when you can drive away. I think there's two parts in that. One, I think it's definitely healthy, like what we do. We talk about heaps of stuff, right? But then to go away and reflect on what you talked about, that's when the revelation kicks in and you go, actually, I think I contribute to this. That's healthy for any man.
Well, you don't think. You definitely do contribute.
Yeah. Don't fall into this to the blame game though of like, oh, you know, I just got to take responsibility on. Hey, I'm one of the biggest things I believe is a masculine trait of a man is to take responsibility. I don't believe men need to cop the brunt of everything and just give in and be like, oh, it must be my fault again. I've joked about that. I'm sure every man jokes about it too. I've joked about that many times with Lisa, where Lisa goes, what are you doing? And I go, I'm guessing something wrong. Like, why do you say that? I'm obviously joking. But it is easy for men to become accustomed to think that, God, what am I doing wrong now? You're obviously doing something different because both men and women are different. But I've often gone, okay, I'm obviously doing something wrong because you wouldn't have said or asked the way you have. But the problem is when you start to then fall into that trap of the blame game and you start to believe everything is your fault, that's the danger. And that's where I think the downward spiral in a lot of men and then marriages fall. Because I think when you look at happiness in a marriage, I'm not saying that happiness is the ultimate goal, but within a marriage, you want to be happy, right? Not calling happiness number one, but you want to be happy. I'm going to flip the script a little bit on how I'm going to ask that question, right? When I look at happiness in marriage, the go-to question that I could easily ask you both is, all right, so Mike, are you happy? Jamie, are you happy? I'm not going to ask that. I'm going to ask it the other way around.
Oh, thank God.
I'm not going to ask if you're unhappy. Stop crying, Jamie.
What's that sign for help?
He's
Just
signing
some
help.
sand in my eye. Sorry.
It's the dust storm. What I am going to ask is, how would you respond to me if my question was this? Mike, in your relationship, is Pip happy? And I say to Jamie, in your relationship, is Anna happy?
Sometimes. Not always, but yeah.
Jamie?
I'd probably say right now no, you know, and it's stuff that we're working through, you know, but it is, as you were saying, it's that for better or for worse sort of situation, you know. But yeah, like, but we've both acknowledged it, and
That's the key, eh?
yeah, and I think that. So when I say the best version of yourself, it's not always get in the gym. It's also get into actually you learning how to control your emotions and your triggers and what you're doing. You know what I mean? And the first step in that is that self-awareness. As you just said, Mikey, you walk away, you go, oh, hold on, I'm responsible for this, And I think that's a very, very good point, is that, you can't ask people to do something that you're not doing yourself, So I think that having that ability to go, cool. And I brought it up on the podcast last week. Like, I probably go too far on the stage of, I'm not putting up with this and don't do this. And do you know what I mean? Like, don't treat me like that. I'm not okay with that. Like, where, maybe I'm a little bit over the top of that because I'm overcorrecting from previous relationships. So we're working on that. So she's not miserable or not totally unhappy all the time. But if I was saying right now, is our relationship at the stage where it should be or where it was? Not right now. But we're both, and that's why it's so important for both parties to be working towards it. Because if you're both working towards it, it's so much easier, So
I think life has got a lot of input to that as well. Like just the general day to day, you've got work, you've got finances, you've got all these other things that plays a big part. Like I know some of the biggest struggles we've had, or arguments, issues, have all been at the root of it around finances, money. And as you get more money, some of these things just kind of have a habit of auto-correcting. I want to go on holiday, I want to go shopping, I want to do this. Oh, hey, love, we actually can't afford that right now. You're just telling me what to do. You can't control me. You're no fun. Well, no, we're doing it for the right reasons, but it's not always taken. Again, women speak in feelings, don't they? We speak in facts, they speak in feelings. So when your wife says you're whatever, it's what she feels. It's not actual real.
I think the communication's more actions. I think women show how they feel in actions more than what they actually say. Yep. So if you think about girls, the way that they at school and stuff, the way that they are with their friends and stuff, they don't walk up to that chick and call her a bitch, and you know what I mean? Like, they won't verbalize it. They'll go talk to another person that knows them, or they'll go get, their boyfriend and like get him to flirt with someone else, or spread a rumor, or do something like that, where they'll go take an action. It's more, is it covert sort of operations, sort of
I wonder
stuff?
why Wayne kept giving me Post-it notes saying, you arsehole.
Yeah. But, and I really do think that more men need to be more direct as well too, because we communicate directly, where you're like, you're being an arsehole, mate, or you're doing this, or you're doing that. Like,
I've tried that; it doesn't work.
No, not to your partner.
Oh, damn.
But
I was like, I called her the arsehole.
No, but
Don't call her.
But it comes back in that communication to your partners.
Yep.
If you're trying to talk to them, do you know what I mean? You're being direct in that communication, then we can be intimidating. Even when you're not trying to be intimidating, they can take that as intimidating, and then that fear flight kicks in, And I mean, like, how often does that happen? As soon as you try, you're not even that angry. You just want to communicate about something, but instantly they're on the defensive and they feel like they need to protect themselves.
Absolutely. I've had that conversation many times with Lisa, even just a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
I was saying how I know I'm an extremely patient person, and I'm a very easily forgiving person, right? But for her, it was received as being passive aggressive. I'm going, I'm being hand on heart, honestly. Like, I don't see it as that within me, because I'm genuinely coming from a place of just being patient and seeing things out. But it was how it was received. So it's the receptivity of your partner. You go, well, I don't know how else I could have delivered that any better. Like, I've literally been straightforward and clear, but they receive it like an attack. And when they receive it like an attack, their first mode is defense. So all of a sudden you've got an argument that's started and kicked off that didn't even need to be there, all because even though the communication was there, like you're saying, because communication is so important, even though the communication was there, it's either the delivery or the receptivity of how it's communicated that actually can start the argument. Because we look at communication within marriages and we go, oh, it's key. 100% communication is such a key role, but it's how you communicate it. And I remember in that book, Love and Respect, it talks about pink glasses and blue glasses, and it even talks about like pink megaphone and a blue megaphone. In other words, men see things different to how women see it. Men speak differently to how women see it, but they also talk about blue hearing aids and pink hearing aids, that men hear something completely different to how a woman says it, right? And the example they give in that book is you got a husband and wife going out for dinner. They'll both walk into the same walk-in robe of their bedroom. They'll both walk out and the wife will say, I've got nothing to wear, right? The husband walks out and goes, I've got nothing to wear. What she's saying when she says, I've got nothing to wear, is I've got nothing new. I haven't bought a new dress in so long. All these dresses are old. I've worn them all 10 times. I've got nothing new. He walks out and goes, I've got nothing to wear. He's talking about, I've got nothing clean. My jeans are in the dirty clothes. So they've
My
both
5 black T-shirts. Are all
every one of my
All got paint
17
on them.
plain black shirts. But the truth is you've got the exact same situation, the exact same thing said, the exact same thing heard, but both meaning entirely different things. And this is why communication within a marriage is so key on not communicating, but communicating in a way that brings about understanding. Because when it lacks understanding and it lacks clarity, absolutely. But one of the keys I believe with you, and I've had this conversation many times in my marriage, is to keep your guard down. There's no need within a marriage that is focused on lasting the distance. There's no need to have your guard up because I'm not your enemy. I'm on your team. We're both side by side facing the same way. So if your guard's up against me, why? I'm not attacking you. Life attacks us. Finances attack us. Relationships attack us, but we're the team. We're both facing this way. So if you've got your guard up against me, that means you don't have your guard up against everything else. So if you don't have your guard up against the rest of the world, that's where the danger steps in. Like you need to have your guard up that way with me facing forward because we're in this together. So I think communication done well, done the right way is without a doubt key.
But that is what a guy needs. He needs that person
Exactly.
to have his back,
Absolutely.
not be the one that's attacking him.
Yep.
But in the communication as well, I'm a big believer that you have to communicate to them through actions. So because they will test you, because they want to feel safe, right? Because we don't provide as much as we used to because they're working now. So that's not as needed anymore. So the real two things where we actually can make a difference in is the protection and the leadership. Yeah. But if they need if they feel like they can't trust you or they don't feel safe with you, then they're not the communication means shit because they're not believing what you're saying anyway. So that's why they'll test you. They'll actually see whether they can trust you or not. Because, and I'm not talking about physical violence or anything like that. Like, you know what I mean? We all know that we don't do anything like that. And anyone who does do that, then I think you're a piece of shit, personally.
Yep.
But, and it's only because they can't control their emotions that they have to go to that stage. But women will test you to see how you react. And they're not looking at what you're saying. They're looking at your actions. They're saying, okay, so even if he's pissed off at me, is he still going to protect me? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So, and that's why, you can't control what is said to you, but you can control how you react to it.
Yeah.
So, and I think that, and if in looking back, I react too much where I'm like, I'm not okay with you treating me that or saying this or doing that sort of stuff. Do you know what I mean? So that is one area we have to focus on, is what are our actions around that person, you know? And yes, you know, you get into the gym and you start to feel better and you start to look better. And if you start reacting less, you know, and because it doesn't mean that you put up with the shit, you don't put up with shit, but what they're checking to see is if you're going to go off rails. Is this just you pretending to be someone that you're not, or is this really the new you that you're going to become? You know,
That's good, mate.
So,
Lads, I want to close on love. The reason I want to do it is because we touched on it in part 2 of this series when we're talking with Chris about love and what love is, and I was touching on the different Greek words of love and where they've come from and the different definitions, because in our English language we have one word which is love, and I referenced it to, you know, in one conversation we can say the word love 4 different ways. I love coffee, I love my kids, I love my wife, and I love whatever, right?
love you guys.
I love you guys. But each one of those loves means a different thing. I love coffee, of course I do. I love my kids, absolutely. I wouldn't lay down my life for a coffee, but I would lay down my life for my kids. I also love my wife. My love for my wife is different to the love I have for my kids, because my love for my wife includes intimacy. It doesn't include that with my kids or coffee, right? So love with an English translation should sound different, should be different, but it's not. But we just use the one word love. What I want to do, I want to ask you both a question. I want you to answer. And for the guys that they're listening and watching, I want you to answer this first question too. Mike, do you love Pip?
Yes.
Okay. Jamie, do you love Anna?
100%.
Okay. Guys out there, I want you to ask yourselves a question and put your wife's name obviously in that. Do you love your wife? Okay. Next question, I don't want you to answer because I don't want to embarrass you guys and put you guys on the spot, but I want you guys listening in and watching this to ask yourself this question, answer yourself honestly. So the first question I asked you, Mike, was do you love Pip? You said yes. Jamie said, do you love Anna? You said yes. Mikey, are you in love with Pip?
Yes.
I said don't answer. What are you doing answering?
Oh, I don't care.
Okay. Jamie, are you in love with Anna?
Yeah.
You don't need to answer. Okay.
No, I am. And look,
You don't scare me with your questions.
Reason I was asking this, right, is because when we hear that question, the first one, we instantly answer out of a place of emotion, right? How you're feeling towards them. Do you love your wife? Of course I love her. Of course I love her. All right, but are you in love with her? And you'll find 99% of men will then get stumped on that question because they go, okay, I actually answered the first one in regards to feeling, right? Well, it actually reveals that you're answering these questions in regards to how you feel. And this is why I believe when it comes to love within a long-term committed relationship, you need to be able to answer those both questions with yes, right? But the reason you can answer both of those questions with yes is if you can look past love being a feeling or an emotion and you understand that love is a choice. And it's a daily choice. Because like we touched on at the start there, you know, like when your wife gets older, their body composition changes, like a lot about them change, right? So if you're relying on the feeling you had at the time you popped the question and you think that feeling is the same when you're 80 years old lying next to each other, the feeling's different, right? Because they look different, they smell different, they act different, they talk different. They're not the person you feel. Obviously, we appreciate the change because we said the growth happens together. But a lot of the dangers, I think, when it comes to love is you see a lot of marriages break down because they answer that question based on the feeling and the emotion. And when you answer that question based on the feeling and emotion, you come up with a no, or you can come up with a no. When you answer that question looking at it as a decision, I believe you'll always come up with a yes. Because when I made that commitment at that altar, my commitment was I commit to feeling in love with you forever. That wasn't my commitment. My commitment was I'm choosing to decide to love you forever. And that looks past or can take you past arguments. It can take you past disagreements. It can take you past, you know, the different journeys. The fact that you come back and go, but hang on, I decided to love you forever. And because I decided that, It pushes past the emotion because I believe the emotions, they're waves. Like we talk about emotions all the time. They're up and down. So if your decision making rides a wave, it has the ups and downs. If your decision making comes back to a commitment, then there's a distinctive, locked in, well, hang on a minute, I decided that I would love you forever. I decided that you will be the person forever. So I'm going to come back to that. And I can tell you now, not that Lisa and I, again, we've not been to places where we've gone, I don't think this is going to work, but we've definitely had our fair share of me going, oh my God, did I make the right call? Is this person the one? But I can guarantee you what kept me locked in is going, hang on, look past the feeling, look past the emotion, because right now there's anger, right now there's frustration, right now there's confusion, right now there's so many feelings that are on a wave. But if I can remember the commitment, come back to that time 25 years ago, I can remember the decision I made, that then is an unshakable foundation that I go, right, I come back to that. Now, if that's the place if that's the platform I'm now working from, not trying to work back towards, I think there's a massive sense of security there. But I think what happens when you see a lot of marriage breakdowns is they'll answer those questions on that wave of emotion, on that wave of feeling. And that's, I think, one of the biggest dangers men can do is they think love is a feeling. Because if it is, you will, at some point more than once, feel like you don't love her. And you will sometimes, more than once, feel like you are not in love with her. But if you can stay decided and committed that you do love her, I believe that that's a strong foundation you'll always come back to. And then that's where you can work from. But I think one of the dangers a lot of men face is they'll answer that question from a place of that wave of emotion, outside of decision.
Yep.
Thoughts before we close, lads? Lad. Just called you a lad.
Well,
Gentlemen, before we
he
close.
is English, so
Pretty heavy.
It's good.
For the men out there that are listening and watching on this podcast or on this video, he's married and he's questioning right now, or he's had the thought go through his head, my God, is she the one? What would you tell that man?
Just make it a yes. You made a commitment, stick to it, and do what you need to do to make it work.
Jamie?
I think you need to get real with yourself first and go, what kind of man do I want to be? And become that man. And then there's steps after that, which is obviously, work on your emotional capacity, and it is okay for you to set boundaries too. And also don't be afraid to say what you need as well too. I think that's a lot of the time guys don't actually say what they need, and then therefore they don't become who they should be. So does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, if you need something in the relationship and you don't say it, it's like if you're doing a job and someone's pissed off with you, and they don't tell you, you couldn't fix that, So I think sometimes we could be upset at our partners when they don't actually even know what we want or need or what's important. So,
Well said, mate.
Right.
I'll close with this, gentlemen. First of all, appreciate you listening in, tuning into us. I hope you got a lot out of it, but I'll close with this statement. I believe if you are a married man out there and you are asking yourself the question, is she the one? One, you're definitely not alone. We've all been there. A lot of guys might even be there right now. But if you are asking yourself the question as a married man, my God, is she the one? Did I make the right decision? My first bit of advice to you would be let your answer be yes. After it's a yes, work back at justifying why it is a yes. Work around as to why you've made that decision to begin with, and work at exactly what I believe what Jamie was saying or Mike was saying today is work on yourself. Let that inner you come out, work on yourself, be that better man, the kind of man that is attractive to your wife. So look, if you are asking the question as a married man, is she the one? Let it be a yes and work around justifying why it is a yes. Remember that commitment you made. and work on that. Gentlemen, once again, thank you for joining me. Really, really good. And what I'll do is I'll close by saying, guys, make sure you get along to your AJs this week. Hit up the website, hit up all the places where we advertise all our stuff. Grab some merch, find out where the meetups are. Big shout out to our sponsors. I forgot to say it at the start, but our sponsors there, you guys are unreal. If you want to sponsor and partner with us, jump on the website, send us an email. We'll hook you up. We'd love to promote who you are as a business and connect you with us in this great thing that we're doing here. Gentlemen, thanks for joining me once again.
Thanks, boys.
Thanks for having us, mate.
Excellent. Enjoy your week, lads.